Excellent. So if you can just
Should I still record?
yeah, if you can do the cloud recording now.
Yeah.
Connecting to cloud server.
And am I now? I've got to hide myself from my screen. Yeah.
No, you're hidden. Oh, maybe you do.
Yep.
Melanie, it's all up to you. Take us away. Take us to heaven and back.
I will do my best. Okay, so Josh, I will basically just go through a really quick introduction for the video to just orient the seminar attendees about kind of how the awards has worked and how your video got selected.
Yep.
And then I'll introduce you and say congratulations. And then we'll just dive into those questions that you've already had a chance to have a look at, I imagine.
Yep, had a look at those and jotted down a couple of notes.
Perfect.
Did you want me to mihi back to you for introductions?
So I'll basically introduce you. It'll be pretty obvious when you need to say something. I'll just say like welcome and congratulations, and you can do a little thanks, great to be here, something like that.
Yep.
But apart from that, all good. And then I'll just note that we're diving into questions, and we'll do that. And then after we're done with all the questions, I'll probably say something like well done again and thanks for your time, and then I'll just dive into like a little outro, couple of sentences too, if that all sounds good.
Sounds fantastic.
Perfect. Okay, well, I think we're all good to go and we're all recording, so I'll be quiet for a minute for a good start to the video and then we'll kick off. Okay. This year's Young Engineers Awards function has been unfortunately postponed this year until 18th of November, and you'll have to wait until then to find out who will be crowned the winner of each award category. But recently we shared snippets of our finalist videos on social media and asked the public to decide which finalists we hear more from at the 2021 seminar series this year. In the category of Young Engineer of the Year, the majority vote went to Joshua Blackmore. Josh is an electrical engineer with WSP and joins us today from Christchurch, New Zealand. Welcome, Josh, and congratulations.
Kia ora. Thanks for having me.
No problems. We'd like to dive into a few questions for you, if that's okay.
Absolutely, go ahead.
Perfect. So your submission spoke both to inclusive design and the impacts engineers can have in the sustainability space, two pretty big tenets. What do you think about the interactions of these two drivers in building services design?
Yeah, absolutely. So these, you've put it quite well there. Those are two mega trends which are set to really define the direction of our industry and the built environment at large into the foreseeable future. They're becoming increasingly more important to not just us as engineers and not just our clients, but to society at large. The ever-looming threat of things like climate change and how we deal with those effects locally within our communities is going to be a huge challenge that we're going to need to face as a society over the next few decades. And as engineers, we've got a role to play in helping our communities do what we can to limit the effects, and then when they unfortunately do happen, coping with them as best as we can. From a diversity perspective, we know that we're living in an increasingly diversified world. Global mobility pre-pandemic meant that our all around the world cultures were mixing, and that will only continue into the future. We're also becoming increasingly more aware of how our built environment affects us as people, and all the different sorts of people. So no longer can we just design buildings for a sort of generic user. We need to think about everybody who may be using a space, all the different backgrounds, the assumptions they may make, their different levels of mobility and comprehension of the world around them. And as designers, we have a responsibility there to make sure that our buildings and our structures are fit for purpose for everyone who's going to use them, not just those who look, think, and act like we do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really strong point, and it's really nice to see more of a focus on that as well, kind of for the industry across the board. So it's a really good point. A little bit following on from that, I guess, is how would you recommend that we as professionals in the building services industry ensure that we do look to see past of our own frame of reference and remain focused on inclusive design kind of in our day-to-day going about our roles?
Yeah, I think first off, accepting that that is something that needs to happen is a fantastic place to start. When we as designers come to the table to approach a problem, we bring a whole bunch of stuff to the table, our own past experience, but also our view on the world. And like you mentioned there, it's a really important place to start by recognizing that our view isn't the only view. And like I was saying before, we need to consider the viewpoints of all those who are going to be using a space. A great place to start is by doing what you can to project team with people from diverse backgrounds, and fostering a genuinely inclusive team culture. It's also important to consider those who aren't in the room, and ultimately the people who will be using the space. You know, often as engineers, we get bogged down in the technicals of pipes and cables and switchboards and so on. Something I'm really passionate about and that I keep reiterating to the project teams I'm a part of is when we're designing spaces, we shouldn't just be thinking about those technical things. We should be thinking about, you know, nurses and doctors and patients in hospitals, or teachers and students when we're designing educational environments, members of the community, churchgoers, transit users, those who will ultimately be spending the most time in the spaces that we're helping create and manage. And by keeping them and their interests at heart, that's the best way to get out of our own heads and design a solution that's really most fit for the community who's going to be using them. It's also important to think about what's different from on the job you're on in comparison to previous ones. Sometimes we like to, as engineers, fall into a trap of having a box of designs that we can pull from and go, great, this building's the same as that one we did 2 years ago. Let's pull that off the shelf, without sometimes checking that all the assumptions we made when coming up with that design are correct. Or we're often quite good with doing that technically, but sometimes there were decisions made that went into that design that were driven by social or environmental considerations that aren't. And so it's really important that when we do rely on reference designs that we double check to make sure that those assumptions that were made are still relevant.
Yeah, 100%. I think, excuse me, I think it's a really pertinent reminder just to kind of make sure that we're not just sticking with the status quo, and some good tips there for us to kind of think about as we're going about our day-to-day in our project team. So thank you for those. I guess to kind of wrap that up, are there any go-to strategies that you have or that you use to bring a wider project team or client along the journey of designing for resilient best practice outcomes, kind of thinking about years to come, despite some of the barriers that can often be present?
Yeah, absolutely. The most important thing to realize is that often it is a journey, and that's not something that you can come in as an engineer and dictate this is the way it has to be from day one. So many of these things where they don't have a clear, correct outcome when you're designing for inclusivity or for sustainability, it's important to have that conversation as a wider team and to bring the team and the client and the community along with you on that journey, because if they're not going to buy into it, then you're not going to get anywhere. Particularly when some of those drivers that you start butting up against them, it's really important to have those who can champion for the cause when you're not in the room. At an individual level, it's really important to approach those situations with empathy, to try and work with your teammates, your client, to really understand where they're coming from and what's driving them to the position that they may be in, if it's in conflict with the direction that you're trying to drive a project. Accept that you may not be able to win every discussion or every decision, but at the end of the day, we generally all want the same thing. So by appealing to our common humanity and our common desire to create a fit for purpose, sustainable, inclusive facility at the end of the project, we can generally get there together. It's important to, I think sometimes us engineers, we're not very good at explaining the reasoning behind our decisions. There's a lot of, I know what I'm doing, trust me. And so it's really important to be very clear with your communication about why you're doing something. You're not just doing this because it's compliant. You're doing this because it achieves the outcome that the client wants, that the communities want, that good design isn't rushed, and that by investing not necessarily extra resource, but investing thought and effort in design, and by making really intelligent decisions and intentional decisions about what you put into a space, you can create far better outcomes at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Yeah. So some really good points there and really practical, I think, especially when we're talking about aligning interests and making sure that you set up champions that aren't just yourself, so that you can make sure those interests are looked after even when you're not in the room. Really interesting and practical points. Thank you so much, Josh.
No problem.
Thank you, and congratulations again, of course. So to everyone listening, later in the seminar series, we will actually also hear more from one of our graduate finalists, Naira Nee, and one of our student finalists, Vivian Carr. We hope you will join us for the awards function itself on Thursday, 18th of November 2021, which at this stage is still booked as a face-to-face function in Sydney, fingers crossed, with a free live stream option. Of course, considering advice from the authorities, the function may be adapted to all online. We'll see how we go. Either way, we hope to see you there. So thanks, everyone, and thank you again, Josh.
No, thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.
Cheers.
Great.
Alrighty.
Alrighty. I was trying to think whether or not I stopped you, Josh, because your microphone, because it's a fixed microphone and it's right in front of your mouth, as you breathe, they tend to, microphones are not designed to have air pushed against them, because then they actually push. So I'm just gonna have to do something in post-production about that. But you know, it is what it is, and it was good to hear your take on everything.
Yeah, well, I hope that was roughly what you were looking for.
Yeah, really, really great answers. Very well considered. Thank you so much.
No problem.
And I think very, very on point for the seminar series kind of resiliency theme too. So yeah, really good.
Very timely stuff to be talking about.
That's it.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Thank you, Mel. Thanks for doing that. And Josh, thanks for coming back.
Yeah, thank
No
you.
worries.
Got it done.
Thanks,
Very
Josh.
good.
Appreciate it, mate.
All right, wonderful. So yeah, this I imagine is going to be in the next seminar session.
Yep. Sorry, go ahead.
Do you mean with Vivian?
It's coming Tuesday.
Now, or are you talking about?
No, I mean when this video will go up for the.
I think we will show this one on Tuesday. This coming Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I've got to do some reworking with the script now. I wasn't 100% sure, so I'm like, I won't put any comments about it in there for the chair. But, I think Dan, if you think it'll be fine for this Tuesday, I'll shuffle that script around and we'll.
That's fine. I can make it happen for this Tuesday, and you know, make Josh a star. We're here to make you a star, Josh.
Stop it.
How can we not make you a star when you're from New Zealand and you look that good?
You flatter me.
Oh, Dan, what a charmer.
Mel, will you be joining us at the seminar series? Have you registered for? Or
I haven't registered for all of them.
very
Tuesdays
busy,
are a horrible meeting day for me. I'll give you a call after this as well about some stuff. But yes, I will try to make it on her part if I can. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
You know what you should do in any case is just register, because that way you have access to all the videos that will be on the platform and you can watch them.
Absolutely.
And not only that, Melanie, it shows up that we're doing a good job because we have more registered.
Of course. Yeah.
And I hope you're registered as well, Josh.
Yeah, I'll be there and cringe as I rewatch myself in every arm and arm. It's slightly better.
So for next time, Josh, because it's like one of those things, you know, when it's kind of my industry, the same as, you know, those safety purloin things behind you or your industry, you know, when especially when you're doing other live events or Zoom recordings and things, there are a couple of things that are really, really important. And the first one is eye contact, okay? When you do watch yourself back, you'll see, because you're a thinker, you know, you're an engineer and you're a thinker, so you're constantly thinking. And so you're looking around, which is great because you're engaging your brain, and lots of people don't engage their brain, which is kind of horrendous. But it's really important, at least for a certain amount of time, that you just look down the barrel of the camera so that you know, it's you know, that kind of thing. So and then the microphone as well, you know, just drop that down a bit. So when you're doing a Zoom call next time, just drop it down a little bit so it just goes down your chin. They're kind of designed to go down your chin, not to sit in front of your mouth. And the aeroplane ones are, you know, when they're sort of you know, got high pressure aeroplane engines, and they got the ones that come around the front, but most of them are kind of designed to go down to your chin. So just so you know, that's just a thing.
OAV tips from
That's
Dan.
it. That's it. OAV tips with Dan over here in Wollongong.
He's giving us our money's worth.
That's right. That's right. So this is actually all waterproofing. So that's, I just thought I'd share that with you as well. I now know about waterproofing. My father-in-law has taught me about it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good.
All
All right, guys.
Thank you so much.
Day, guys.
And we'll see you on Tuesday.
Would it be possible to get a copy of the my section of the video? There's just a few internally to work who would be keen to have a look.
Yes, no, definitely. I mean, if you can't get them to come along to the seminar series, I guess this is the.
I'll tell you what, we can offer a
best
discounted price for the ticket. How's that?
Mates rates.
We can offer you a book of 10 for the price of 3.
Love it.
Close, Dan. You're paying attention there. I like that.
Alrighty.
Yeah, I think we can get that.